Hello, my name is Etchi. Today we're going to be doing an RNG manipulation explanation video for Gen 4 Pokemon speedrunning. I'm going to be demonstrating how to do this on a real DS console. I want to note I wanted to also demonstrate this on a 3DS, but unfortunately there's an issue with my 3DS capture card right now, so I'm going to have to record a 3DS video later. The process is slightly different. The idea is the same thing. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to enter the game at a specific second, and then time an A press at a specific frame, and then we check our trainer ID, and then if we have the right trainer ID that we're looking for, that means we hit the minute. And the reason why this is slightly different on 3DS is that there's actually variability for whether or not you hit the correct second, just the way that setting your date time works in the 3DS console, whereas it's completely consistent and totally fine with the DS. So there's a couple things you need that were mentioned in the previous video in this series, which if you haven't watched it, I have another video on just explaining what we're doing here and how this all works, but go watch that if you haven't already. You're going to want Flow Timer. It's the program you see right now in my top right window. I'm using this offset because this is the offset that works for me. Now you may be wondering, where do you get this offset? We're going to get that from notes, but before we go into that, I want to explain Flow Timer in detail a little bit more. So if you've never used Flow Timer before, it is basically just a metronome program. So how it works is, as we approach 0 here on this 5-second timer, it's going to actually do some beeps, and it'll do as many beeps as you specify in the beeps column. So here it's 5. So what it's going to do is, as it approaches 0, it's going to do beep, 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 beep. And that last beep is going to be on exactly 0.0000. So what you want to do is time your A press exactly when that 5th beep happens, or whatever beep you sent to, the final beep. For me, I prefer 4 beeps, but some people prefer 5. You can also mess with the settings to change like volume, the sound, hotkeys, etc. So play with it, figure out what you like. Usually I like to warm up a little bit before I do runs with a dummy timer like this one that's just set to 5 seconds, and I just do it a few times in practice. So we're going to remove that for now. This is the offset I'm looking for. I have Flow Timer, or I have Live Split on the right side underneath Flow Timer. And the only thing you really need to note here is that in Live Split, what you want to do is you want to right click it, edit splits, and then where it says start timer at, you want to set it to -13.83. And then when you press OK, it'll look exactly like my Live Split timer, where it's just the default start time is -13.83. And then you can also mess with the hotkeys for that as well, however you want to. So once you have those two things set up, how do you actually like figure out your offset and do the RNG manipulation? So in this example, we're gonna look at the Diamond Pearl any percent notes. And what you're gonna see basically in any RNG manipulation notes that you're looking up on speedrun.com is something like this, some kind of chart. And it kind of looks like gibberish at first, but basically the left column will say a number like -2, 0, +2. There's going to be another column that has a bunch of 5-digit numbers, and then there'll be another column with like letters like this. So the left column is actually your distance to the correct frame. So in this case, the 0 frame is the frame we're actually aiming for. So if you are in this column or in this row, then that means you were 2 frames early. Now, how do you know if you were 2 frames early? It's because this middle column is actually the trainer IDs. So you know you're 2 frames early if your trainer ID is 26851. The third column is another way to tell if you've hit the right seed or not, or where you are. It's basically just identifying the NPC movement. So as soon as you exit the house, you can see the NPCs. And this particular line is saying that the first NPC is going to be facing left, and the second NPC is going to be facing up. So on the correct seed, you can either check your trainer ID for 14093, or you can just look at the NPCs. The first one should be facing up, and the other one should be facing left. And then also in all the notes, there's going to be example offsets that the runners who wrote the notes use. You're going to want to take those offsets and then tweak them as needed in order to hit the one that works best for you. Now, why does your offset not just work for everyone, or why does their offset not just work for you automatically? It's because we're all using different computers, different speakers, different drivers. We all have different kind of human reaction times, and as a result, nobody's offset's going to be exactly the same. So we have to tune our offsets to make sure that they're consistent enough for us to reliably hit these RNG seeds so we don't just spend hours and hours hitting the wrong seeds and waste a bunch of our time. So how do we do that? How do we figure out what our offset is like? So this is the offset that I've already tuned. I know this works well for me. You can go ahead and start with this one if you like. I'll put this in the notes and in the description as well. But I'm going to go demonstrate. I'm going to close this browser window for now. I'm going to exit Pokemon Pro. I've already deleted the save on it, so make sure you do that if you haven't done that already. I'm going to adjust my microphone just a bit. I'm going to go straight to the date. All the notes are going to have the correct date and time you want to set the clock to. So I'm going to do 11/13/72. And then for this run and this RNG manipulation, we want to set the time to 3:15. Now what's going to happen here? So I want to time it such that I press A right now at the exact same time I start my live split timer. So right now I have my left hand finger on my start timer button and my right hand finger on the A button. So I'm going to press them at the exact same time. I'm going to turn off my DS, turn it right back on. I'm going to put my left hand finger on the flow timer start and my right hand finger on A. And then when we're at -1, I'm going to press both of them at the same time. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit there. I just wanted to kind of show it all in one go. So yeah, two components to this initial part. 1, starting flow timer. 2, starting live split. The first part you're doing is starting live split. Again, pressing the start timer along with the A button here. And then what I want to do is start flow timer the moment I press A in the menu when I'm at -1.0. Now, why is it -1.0? Why anything? You want to enter the game at a very specific second. Now, this is literally a 1 second window, so it's actually kind of loose. You don't have to enter the game at exactly -1.0. You can be like -1.2 or -0.8. That's usually fine. You might have to tweak it a little bit if you find you're consistently being 1 second late or 1 second early. And fortunately with the DS, because if you actually look at the menu right now, you can see that it's showing the clock in the seconds hand. So if as long as you're recording, you can actually just watch your VOD and check if you are actually entering the game late or early or whatever. And you'll also know if you enter the game at the wrong second because you're going to get an ID that's not on the sheet at all, or in the table or whatever. So we want to enter the game at the right second, and then we also want to time it with flow timer so that when we do enter the game at a very specific frame, again, Diamond Pearl runs at 30 frames per second. So this is a 1 in 30 frame trick. And the flow timer is going to count down. And as we mash through the intro and all the dialogue with Professor Rowan, then flow timer is going to count down exactly when we're at the right frame on the TV screen. And when flow timer counts down, we're going to press A. And that's basically all there is to it. It's actually not too much once you get the hang of it. So we're just going to try it all in one go here. And again, I'm going to talk through this. Starting timer and setting the clock at the exact same time. Restarting my DS. In position for flow timer, waiting for -1.0. And it started. Okay, so want to mash through this intro screen. Just mashing A here. Here I'm going to be holding B and mashing A. I just kind of like put my thumb on B and kind of roll over to A. Can pick this third option. Now this window is actually fairly tight, so we want to mash through this pretty fast. If you find yourself not being able to consistently mash quickly enough, 1, make sure you're holding B and mashing A, and then 2, make sure you're naming yourself and your rival very quickly. A little trick you can do is you could just pick one of the names for your rival if you're having a lot of trouble. It does lose time during the run, but it will help you actually hit the RNG seed if you're struggling when you start out. I don't think you'll be able to hear my flow timer, but I can say the beeps out loud. You can pretend I'm flow timer. Beep, 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 beep. And we're just going to check our ID and see what we got. I actually got it. Wow. So this is the correct ID again. We look at our table. I'll pull it up again. And we see that our target ID is 14093. Now, what if we didn't hit our target ID? What if we hit 26851? Or what if we hit something that's not even on this list? And we know we hit the correct second because we checked our VOD. Well, I made a spreadsheet. You can see it right here. I mapped out all the frames from -25 to 25. So hopefully your train ID is at least on here because then you're not too horribly off because this is a pretty large window. So let's say you got like -9, right? This is, if you got trainer ID 56100, so you were 9 frames early. How would you tune your offset to deal with this? Again, Diamond Pearl runs at 30 FPS, so we want to adjust our offset basically in 30s for every frame we're early until we get like pretty close to it. So in this case, -9. So 9 times 3 would be 27, so 270 we'd want to add to our offset. Now, if we were 9 frames late, if we were over here and we got 23106, I'd want to subtract 270 from my offset. Now, if you do that and it turns out you're still like 1 frame early or 2 frames late, like consistently, then you want to just slowly start adjusting, continuing to adjust towards 0. What I usually do is, as I get closer, I just adjust by 16 at a time in my offset. So here, if I was like 1 frame late, I would just subtract 16 and just keep doing that until I consistently get to 0 and just kind of like keep tweaking it from there. It's a lot of trial and error. Once you get the hang of it, though, it's pretty straightforward. And this kind of process is what you're going to do for basically any Gen 4 speedrun that uses RNG manipulation. It's the same idea. Gen 4 RNG minute works the same for all the games. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope this cleared up a lot of confusion or mysticism around the Gen 4 RNG manipulation. It's really not that complicated. Again, once you do hit the RNG seed, you just kind of do the actual movement and inputs as you're supposed to. If you don't know what I'm talking about, make sure, again, you watch the previous video in the series. Or if you want to see the full RNG manipulation, I have another video after this that actually shows the Diamond Pearl 90% RNG manip with some fancy overlay stuff all the way through Return to Forest, so the full RNG manipulation. And you can follow along with that and learn as you kind of go along. Highly recommend starting with Diamond Pearl 80% if you wanted to get into this. It's one of the shortest runs, one of the easiest to get into, and the RNG manip's actually pretty easy in terms of difficult movement until you get to a really high level with it. But yeah, thanks for watching. Hope this is helpful. Let me know if you have any other questions.